I hope you all are doing really, really, really well. I am doing okay, except for the fact that as we were going live, news has broken. West Virginia versus EPA. The Supreme Court has dealt a major blow to the EPA's power to regulate carbon emissions that cause climate change. The 6-3 decision ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have the authority to mandate carbon emissions from existing power plants. The court's 3 liberals dissented. The court said that any time an agency does something big and new, in this case addressing climate change, the regulation is presumptively invalid unless Congress has specifically authorized regulating in this sphere. Now, I want to tell you something. This is sophistry. This is sophistry. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Power or the Clean Air Act are there to authorize experts and scientists hired by the government to come up with regulations that protect the environment and the air, which clearly climate change is an issue affecting the environment for the Environmental Protection Agency. This is bullshit. They just made this up. The Supreme Court strikes down climate change regulation. Dems can run on that too. One way to get people out. My God! I'm sorry, chat. Sometimes when I encounter pure, unadulterated liberalism, I don't know what to do. Literally, this major, big and new is something the federal government does. All the stuff we do is important and big. This could be used to literally invalidate any regulation. This makes our government non-functional. The U.S. pre-EPA. When people link me stuff and then they fuck up the Look at Los Angeles. Pittsburgh was called, oh, you guys want to hear something? Pittsburgh was called hell with the roof torn off. That was Pittsburgh's nickname before the EPA. Here's a mistake on the lake. Cleveland. And by the way, chat, you should see what the conservatives are saying and do the opposite. Don't pack the Supreme Court, because if you pack it, then we'll just pack it back. That means you should pack it, because for them to pack it back, say we pack the Supreme Court, what happens? The new packed Supreme Court declares political gerrymandering illegal. The new packed Supreme Court redraws the districts to be fair. The new packed Supreme Court declares that the EPA could regulate carbon. The newly packed Supreme Court invalidates all their voter suppression rules. The newly packed Supreme Court goes through and protects abortion rights. It overturns Citizens United and reactivates regulations banning spending in federal elections. Suddenly, corporations don't have as much power to put with their money in elections anymore. It's a whole... The Supreme Court invalidates right-to-work laws and reenacts agency fees that helps fund unions. And on and on and on and on. In issue after issue, the Democrats and the left make significant gains. And then that helps the electoral outcomes of the left. The Republicans are lower odds of actually getting in power again. Suddenly, the Democrats have 15, 20, 30 more seats they could win in the Congress. Remember, the majority of people are left of center, not conservative. But yeah, and then to repack, Republicans would have to control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Could that happen? Yes. Is that going to happen within the next 4 years? Maybe. But if we don't do that, you just saw the cases that are coming down. The catastrophe of a political Supreme Court is already here, except it's conservative. Joe Biden has finally done the bare fucking minimum. He says we have to codify Roe v. Wade into law. As I said this morning, If the filibuster gets in the way, we need to make an exception to get it done. I saw something about one of the senators being out of commission for medical reasons. Yeah, it's Senator Leahy out of Vermont broke his hip.
Modify Roe v. Wade in the law, and the way to do that is to make sure the Congress votes to do that. And if the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this, require an exception to the filibuster for this action to deal with the Supreme Court decision. Hang on, I got one more here. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, you just made some news saying you would support changing the filibuster rules to codify abortion rights broadly across the country.
Right to privacy is not just abortion rights, but yes, abortion rights. I believe we have to codify Roe v.
Somebody who registered. Sorry, someone had a fat finger. I don't know why you got timed out, man. Do we even have 50 votes for that? Well, I guess that's what we have to whip then, isn't it? That's what our job is. That's what our politicians' job is to get those votes. All right, chat. I wanted to show you this because I couldn't believe it was real. Right-wingers attacking Pokimane. I mean, this is just beyond fucking... This is what it is, chat. This is what life is like now.
Really bad news. I'm sorry I have to report this to you. As a result of the Dobbs decision, hundreds of thousands of babies per year will now be saved from being murdered. That's true. And the people...
Okay, first of all, is that actually true? How much will abortion really decline? Or will it just be pushed into other states? In fact, it might go up, believe it or not.
The states get to choose their own abortion laws, which is something that's a right that they have not had since 1973. But on the flip side of that, Pokimane might leave the country.
Yes, the Roe versus...
First of all, he knows who Pokimane is. He knows who Pokimane is.
Versus Wade news is absolutely terrible. I tweeted about it, I RT'd a couple things, I faved a couple things. It's just tough because what more can we even say at this point? We've said it all. It's depressing. I booked a ticket back to Canada. Like, Anna?
No, Pokimane. Pokimane, you're going back to Canada? No, how can you? First question, just before we move on. Who is Pokimane? I don't know. I saw this headline come up. I had not heard of Pokimane. I had heard of Pokimane, the Japanese cartoon, but I had not heard of Pokimane. She is a Twitch streamer. And not only is she a Twitch streamer, she is not American. She is, from my very modest Googling, she is Moroccan and Canadian. But she...
Okay. Throwing in Moroccan, interesting. I don't think that's her nationality, bro.
He's in America right now.
Also, you know Michael Knowles hit up that wiki feed. You know Michael Knowles did more than just modest Googling. He opened the Bing tab, if you know what I'm saying. He opened up the safe search off on the Bing tab. You know what I mean.
And she's very upset by the Dobbs decision to save the babies. And why is she upset? She can't quite articulate it. She says, what is there to say for someone like Pokimane?
Bing? Oh, you don't know? Never mind. Never mind. I won't explain it. I won't explain it.
Probably there's not quite a lot to say. And she says, I'm going back to Canada. Okay. All right. I think that's fine. Why do I care what Pokimane thinks? I certainly don't. Even further, why should I care what a Moroccan Canadian thinks about my laws?
Why should I think what a Cuban Canadian thinks about my laws? Why should I care what a Cuban Canadian thinks about my laws? Raphael Edward Cruz, born Calgary, Alberta, Canada, to a Cuban father? His father was born and raised in Cuba? As a teenager in the 30s, he was beaten by agents of Batista for opposing the Batista regime. You know, Batista seems pretty bad. But the idea that his goons beat Ted Cruz's father, So, I mean, so doesn't Michael Knowles have a show with Ted Cruz? Yeah, it's right here. Yes.
Do something. Do something. Do you could wave a magic wand. That's almost
Are
exclusively
they ever on the screen at the
to
same time?
regulate guns. None of them would have prevented any of these mass shootings, even the
So in other words, Ted Cruz, the Cuban Canadian, a Pokimane. Oh, why should he care about Pokimane? You know who else is a fucking Canadian, chat? Steven fucking Crowder. Crowder, his mother was French Canadian, and at the age of 3, his family moved to Montreal, where he would live for the rest of his childhood. He went to Centennial Regional High School in Quebec. Motherfucker probably speaks French. So, and that's not the end of the Canadian conservative nonsense. Canada, when Pokemon comes, Canada is sending their best. When Steven Crowder and Ted Cruz comes, we need to build a wall.
Why should I care about that? And why should I care that this foreign Twitch streamer is now going to leave my country because she's so angry that we're not going to kill quite so many babies? Why should her opinion have any effect on me whatsoever? It does not. She has influence with some people, but not with me. She's not the only foreigner who's weighing in on this issue. We've got Mr. Macron, Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France, who is very upset about the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs for some reason. And he tweeted out, quote, "Abortion is a fundamental right for all women. It must be protected. I wish to express my solidarity with the women whose liberties are being undermined by the Supreme Court of the United States." Now, the irony, there's so many layers of irony to Macron's statement, but the top line is, in France, abortions are only allowed for any reason up until 14 weeks. Up until 14 weeks. The law in America, the Mississippi law that brought the Dobbs decision to overrule Roe v. Wade to let the states make their own abortion laws, the Mississippi law bans abortions after 15 weeks.
Yet, overruling Roe and Casey means that it's okay to regulate it from conception. So just because some state doesn't regulate it to conception doesn't mean it doesn't allow states who already have done that. For example, in the Texas bill or the heartbeat bills that are around the country that regulate at 10 weeks. What the fuck are you even talking about, bro?
Abortion is more restricted in France than it is in Mississippi, which is the center point of this case. And yet Macron weighs in and goes, "This is terrible what you Americans are doing. You are you are making your abortion laws almost as restrictive as ours are. This is a fundamental right." Abortion obviously is not a fundamental right. But even if it were, America would be, even in Mississippi, would be protecting that right more than Macron is. Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, Mette says, "My heart weeps for the girl." I'm not going to do a Danish impression. I just don't have, my Danish accent is not quite so good. "My heart weeps for the girls and women of the U.S." Whenever I don't have an accent, I just do Jordan Peterson. "My heart weeps for the girls and women of the USA. A huge setback. The right to a free abortion is one of the most fundamental rights there is." Wow, they're really escalating the rhetoric. It's not just abortion, safe, legal, and rare. It's every abortion's a tragedy, but we have to permit it for some reason. Then it became, no, abortion's a right. And now it's abortion's one of the most fundamental rights there is. Life is the most fundamental right there is. Without the right to life, no other rights can possibly exist. Now the libs are inverting that. They're saying the right, quote unquote, to kill your own child is one of the most fundamental rights. Does that seem coherent to you? Not to me. She goes, "We must never compromise the unrestricted right of women to decide over their own bodies and future." You know the irony here? Layers and layers of irony. You probably are guessing it. In Denmark, unrestricted abortion is only allowed up to 12 weeks. The Danish laws on abortion are much more restrictive than the Mississippi law. It's so ignorant. They just don't.
That's not right. Actually, what's funny about this is all these countries often have exceptions for economic or social reasons. So they have unrestricted abortion on demand up to a certain period, and then they have exceptions for economic or social reasons. So if you want to have an abortion after 12 weeks, there's some sort of additional restriction. But specifically, I believe in Denmark, if I look it up, I have to look it up, but I don't remember. In Denmark's law on abortion, let me just pull it up. Boy. Oh, boy. There we go. Okay. Conditions for abortion. If the 12th week of pregnancy has expired, a pregnant woman may be granted permission to terminate the pregnancy if the pregnancy, birth, or care of the child entails a risk of deterioration of the pregnant woman's health due to present or threatening physical or mental illness or debilitating condition as the result of the child's other living condition. The pregnant woman is unable to take proper care of the child during a physical or mental illness or weak gift. Pregnant woman is, due to young age or immaturity, is not currently able to care for the child in a responsible manner. The pregnancy, birth, or care of the child must be assumed to entail a serious burden on the pregnant woman, which cannot be averted in any other way, so that for the sake of the pregnant woman, the maintenance of the home or the care of other children of the family may be considered for the required that the pregnancy be terminated. The decision takes into account the pregnant woman's age, workload, and personal circumstances in general, as well as the family's housing, financial, and health conditions. So in other words, you can get an abortion after 12 weeks if you can prove any reason. So by the way, exception for the economic circumstances or mental health of the woman is basically another way of saying unrestricted. So he's trying to say things that are just lies, basically, when it comes down to it.
Either they don't know what our laws are, the laws that they're weighing in on and pontificating on, or they just want to hold us to a different standard than they're holding themselves. You literally just have
to say it's a burden, it's a done deal. Exactly.
The one good thing here, outside of the ignorance and presumption of Macron and Frederickson.
And yes, those other countries do provide comprehensive sex ed. Those other countries do provide comprehensive health care, contraceptives, and the abortion is paid for.
It shows you just how important the Dobbs decision is, because the Dobbs decision doesn't just affect America, because America isn't just a nation. America is, in fact, an empire. And everyone around, if you've ever traveled around the world, especially near an American election, you will know that virtually every other country on earth treats the American election as very important to their own countries, treats the American election as though they are part of an American empire, because in many ways they are. And so when America does something like this, when America radically changes course and says, we're not going to outlaw abortion, unfortunately, just yet, but we are going to restrict abortion and allow the people to make their own abortion restrictions, that has reverberations outside of just the United States. That has reverberations throughout the world, even just in the fact that America in its foreign policy now will be more reined in promoting abortion, because there is no national right to an abortion. There is no constitutional right. There have been a number of protests of the Dobbs decisions, politicians screaming.
See, he thinks this, but he thinks it's a good thing. He thinks the United States should dictate to the rest of the world how they live. That's what an empire means. An empire means that we would rule by force over other people. He thinks that's a good thing.
Women protesting with babies and fake blood and things like that. Women in Dallas took a different tack. They protested the Dobbs decision by twerking everywhere in public.
Of course. This piece of shit. Oh my, every conservative is the fucking same, man. Every conservative is the fucking, wow, look at these slutty women. And then steals their likeness to promote his own channel. What a fucking scumbag. What a piece of shit. I hate this motherfucker. What a piece of garbage. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.